Thank everybody for joining us today. Our topic is in regards to private and public education, and as educators what we see is the best option for children and for the educator. We're going to go around the room and quickly introduce ourselves. My name is Martha. I've had 4 years of teaching experience, and I currently teach first grade.
I'm Terry Gallops. I've been teaching for about 26 years. I teach science.
I'm Kelly Rest, and I have 9 years of teaching experience, and I teach history.
I'm Mallory Gallops. I have 3 years teaching experience. I teach English and some math.
Great, so we all have we combined experience, we have a lot of classroom experience. Let me ask, have any of you taught in the public school system?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
For 6 years.
Okay, great. So with that experience and the knowledge you have, how do you feel about the size of the class size? Do you think that it's the setting in a public school, is the larger class sizes found in the public school, do you think that can be a hindrance at times for educating your students?
Yes, absolutely, especially considering I teach some special ed students. The larger class size does not cater to those students especially, but also to a lot of regular ed students. It makes it harder to get that one-on-one time and really pinpoint where students are having problems.
And how do you feel about your class size, Mallory?
I love it. I had to student teach at several public schools. And so I had experience teaching like 30 at a time, and it's hard to tell when they really get it. As a whole, because in a small setting, you can see, oh, this kid gets it, this kid gets it, this kid gets it, I need to talk to that one. But in a big classroom, it's like, I hope they all got it, because it looks like the majority do. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Terry, how do you feel about class size?
I think we can have designer learning in the smaller school environment because we can gauge our teaching methods to fit each child. You can't do that with a larger group, and I've had larger groups of children. It's so much easier when the class size is below 20.
Well, that's great because it leads into another question in regards to the curriculum. Do you think in the private school setting that you have more leniency with how you develop your curriculum and how you approach the students with what you're teaching them in the materials?
It's easier in the private schools to supplement and because we can bring in enrichment and remediation as we need it, and again tailor-make it each lesson for each child, and not having to adhere to things like No Child Left Behind or even the state specific standards and curriculum is beneficial, I think, because when you have high achievers and you pigeonhole them, keep giving them stuff that's beneath their learning ability, then you stymie the whole class.
That's good. And how do you feel about that, Mallory, with your curriculum?
Well, last year I had 6th graders who tested and showed the ability to comprehend and to do algebra, and they did swimmingly. But in the public school, they would have gotten it until 9th grade.
Mm-hmm.
And so here I can give them, I can get them a solid foundation in algebra and then even hit on some geometry, because in such a large classroom, it's hard to teach everybody. And then typically in geometry, you get the people who you're going to memorize these theorems and these proofs, and it doesn't matter if you know what they mean as long as you remember them. And it doesn't do any good.
And Kelly, how do you feel about the curriculum, and with what you teach now, how do you feel opposed to public school?
Yeah, with teaching history, I think it's much better in this setting because I can focus more on projects, and I don't have to just read the book and answer the questions and read the book and answer the questions. It's boring for me and it's boring for the kids. So we can focus more on, really kind of narrowing down certain pinpoints in history and becoming more engaged and getting the students more interested in things like that. Very, very exactly, creative learning.
Well, and when we talk about being able to supplement the curriculum and bring in things into it that you don't see in a public school, how do you think with the faith-based center of learning, And how are you able to do you think that benefits the student, and are you able to bring that into your lessons, opposed to what you would be able to do in a public school?
There are no restrictions on us with regard to religion. We can talk freely about religion and our beliefs and how religion has impacted so many important things, especially in history
Yeah.
and math and science. And we are open-minded about other religions, and we encourage children to incorporate all facets of their life in their learning.
And in English too. I mean, like right now we're reading a book. It's fiction, but the kids are able to compare this work of fiction to things that they've heard or read in the Bible. Like they can compare the characters to different people from the Bible, and they can even portions of the story to different Bible stories. And I can talk about them. I can add to their comparisons. Like that's what their paper is going to be, because they were able to find so many in the first 2 chapters. Well, make a paper out of it.
I think also that being faith-based is important because it really encourages and teaches the children to care for one another on a deeper level. We had a family that was in a car accident, and the whole school went down and we prayed for them all together as a school, and that's something that, brings us together as more of a family environment, and it teaches the kids that we really do need to take care of each other, to care for each other.
Show pride in their religion,
Yeah.
whatever it is.
Whatever it is, yeah.
And how do you think that benefits when we talk about pride and, it enriches, but do you think directly, how does that benefit a student to have that faith-based curriculum? I mean, how do you think that would directly benefit a student personally?
I mean, it teaches them morality and it's things they wouldn't get, in a public school, and it's things that if the parent can't take them for some reason to like catechism, then they can get it here and daily. They don't have to wait, they don't have to do it once a week and then have a big classroom size group and have them just like color stuff.
When you live it daily, you have it in the class every day, then it becomes more part of you than just something you do on the weekend.
Like that kid who had never heard of, was it Jesus or the Bible?
Jesus.
Yeah, he was like, who's Jesus? And
Mhm.
now he has his own Bible, he reads from the Bible all the time.
It teaches them to make better choices too, because they understand more about their religion and how it applies to every part of their life.
That's true. So when you talk about, we have the small size, the schools themselves are smaller generally when you have a private school. Do you feel that you have more parental involvement? Is it more, on a more personal level than, other examples where, you have to go through a counselor to speak to the parent, to speak to a teacher, the parent to speak to a teacher, or vice versa? I mean, do you feel that you are better able to access the parents and have them involved in the children?
We're partners in education with the parents. They're the primary educators. That's the first thing that we tell every parent who comes here. We recognize you're the primary educator of your child, and we just try to enforce the things that they teach at home while also teaching science and math and history.
And do you think how do the children benefit from that?
I think that having a closer relationship with these parents really helps the kids out. Maybe not so much that they like it better, but it's, we see most of the parents on a regular basis when they come to pick up their kids. They, will come into the building, we can ask them questions, they can ask us questions. So I feel like communication with parents versus a public school is much easier and it occurs much more often. I know that when I was teaching in public school, everything was done, through the main office, or there was an email, or, I very rarely saw parents, even as a special education instructor. rarely saw parents.
Kids slip through the cracks that way.
They do, they
Yeah.
absolutely do.
If the parent doesn't know that there's something wrong, and then the teacher doesn't have a way to get in touch with the parent, or can't get in touch with the parent, or, if there's not that communication, then, the kid can fail, and the parent won't know till the report card comes out.
Yeah.
When we have kids who come from the public school, when we send homework home, the first thing the parent does is they try to do it their way. And then it becomes a teacher versus parent kind of relationship there until we're able to talk to the parents and explain why we do things the way we do it.
So as an educator and you have, working with children and things, what do you feel is the benefit of a private education over a public education?
We are not bound by things like No Child Left Behind or sex and math, the same math program that every school in Alabama is using. We can use what we think is more appropriate for our students. And frankly, we have a more challenging math program, more challenging English, science, history, everything.
We get to choose our books. I mean, if we decide that we like this book and it was published in, 2000 versus the brand new thing that published, could have been published 2 weeks ago, we don't have to use it if we don't like it, which is the case for like all the English books, 'cause I hate them.
And again, with another benefit is the class size. Keeping our classes small is such a benefit, not only to the teacher to be able to individualize the education, but for the students as well. It gives them more one-on-one time, and it gives them the opportunity to really ask more questions and feel comfortable doing so.
And not be embarrassed, not feel like somebody's gonna make fun of them or talk about them behind their back because they're asking questions. We
Right.
encourage it.
Right.
And I don't think I didn't feel that way when I was in public school. I felt like if I asked a question, people were gonna get mad because they were gonna wanna move on, and I was holding them back, and so I wouldn't ask questions in class. I would ask after class, or if I couldn't stay after class, I'd ask, other people, not my teacher, because I didn't wanna hear that out of like every other child in the room.
When we've touched on it with the faith-based curriculum and things, do you think, and we've talked about how you can use it to supplement and add to what you teach, do you think that does more to enrich the child's learning than what you get if you have a completely non-secular? Does it, you teach history, so does that not, in this setting, you're able to incorporate religious events and focus, on that. There's some major events in history that were religiously based that went on to change history. So do you feel that having that where you don't have to, wipe it clean, do you think that gives them a better edge as the children move forward into a higher education?
Yeah, absolutely. I know that with my 7th and 8th graders, we did a unit on world religions. We talked about all the major world religions, and they were very engaged in that unit. They asked a ton of questions, and they were truly interested in other people's aspects of the world. And I feel like that part of that interest comes from being comfortable talking about their religion and being engaged with that. And they were very understanding about it. They were very comfortable saying, well, I don't agree with what they do with that religion, but I understand it, and it's okay for them to do that because that's their religion. So it was nice to see that they were so accepting.